I never imagined my 60th birthday would be the night I discover who truly loved me and who had been waiting for me to die. My son's 3 words saved my life, but what came after those words tore my family apart in ways I still can't fully comprehend. The wine glass sat inches from my lips. My entire family surrounded me, smiling, and my little grandson leaned close to whisper the warning that changed everything. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about 3 betrayals that happened under one roof. First, the person who tried to poison me. Second, the family member who knew about it and said nothing. And third, the secret that had been hidden for 30 years. The one that explained why they wanted me gone. If you think you know your family, if you believe blood means loyalty, if you trust the people who raised you or the ones you raised yourself, I thought all those things too. I was wrong. Let me show you exactly how it all began. My name is Margaret, and for 60 years I lived a quiet life in a small Pennsylvania town where everyone knew everyone. I raised 3 children after my husband died young. I worked 2 jobs to keep our home. I never remarried, never complained, never asked for anything I hadn't earned with my own hands. My oldest daughter, Karen, always seemed the responsible one. She handled my finances after I had that small stroke 2 years ago. She insisted on it, actually. Said I needed help managing things. I trusted her completely. My son David lived 3 states away with his wife and my only grandson, Tommy. David called every Sunday without fail. He was the gentle one, the one who remembered every birthday and holiday with handwritten cards. My youngest, Richard, never quite found his footing in life. He moved back home last year after losing another job. I didn't mind. A mother's door is always open. The birthday dinner was Karen's idea. She planned everything at my house, said it would be more meaningful than a restaurant. She'd cook my favorite meal. She'd invite Richard and make sure David flew in with his family. "A proper celebration, Mom," she said. "You deserve it." I remember thinking how blessed I was that morning. 60 years old, and my children still wanted to celebrate with me. But I noticed small things that day. The way Karen watched me too carefully when I took my medication. How Richard kept checking his phone and glancing at Karen. The strange moment when I walked into the kitchen and they both went silent, standing too close together, Karen's hand on Richard's arm. "Just discussing the menu," Karen said quickly. I smiled and pretended not to notice the laptop they'd closed the moment I entered. That evening, my house filled with the smells of roasted chicken and fresh bread. Karen had set the dining table with my good china, the set my mother passed down to me. Candles flickered in crystal holders. Everything looked beautiful. David arrived with his family around 6. Tommy, my 7-year-old grandson, ran straight to me with a drawing he'd made on the plane. "It's you, Grandma! See? That's your garden!" I hugged him close, breathing in his little boy smell of crowns and apple juice. "Grandma," he whispered into my ear, "I need to tell you something later. It's important." I pulled back to look at his serious little face. "What is it, sweetheart?" But Karen called us to the table before he could answer. "Come on, everyone! Food's getting cold." We sat down to eat. Karen placed me at the head of the table, which felt odd since I always sat on the side. But it was my birthday, so I didn't question it. She served the food herself, which was also unusual. Normally, we passed dishes around, family style. The conversation felt strained. Richard drank too much wine and kept making jokes that nobody laughed at. David seemed distracted, quieter than usual. His wife Sarah kept giving him concerned looks. After the meal, Karen brought out a beautiful chocolate cake with 60 candles blazing. Everyone sang, "I made my wish that my family would always be this close, this together. Only if I'd known what I was wishing for." Karen poured wine for everyone. "A toast," she announced, handing me a glass. "To Mom, to 60 years of strength and sacrifice." I lifted my glass. Everyone lifted theirs. And that's when Tommy reached up and grabbed my wrist. But that was before the night everything fell apart.
"Don't drink that." 3 words, barely a whisper. Tommy's small hand clutched my wrist with surprising strength for a 7-year-old. Everyone froze. The dining room went silent, except for the soft crackling of birthday candles burning down. "Tommy, honey, what?" I started. "Don't drink it, Grandma, please." His eyes filled with tears. His whole body shook. David moved fast, reaching across the table. "Put down the glass, Mom." Something in his voice, the sharp edge of fear, made me obey. I set the wine glass on the table. Karen's face went pale. "This is ridiculous. Tommy, you're being silly." "Tell her," Tommy shouted, louder than I'd ever heard him speak. "Tell Grandma what you said. Tell her what you and Uncle Richard were talking about." The room exploded. Sarah pulled Tommy against her. David stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. Richard started shouting something about crazy kids and misunderstandings. But I watched Karen. I watched my daughter's face cycle through expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally something cold I'd never seen in her eyes before. "What did he hear?" David's voice cut through the chaos. He stared at his sister. "What exactly did my son hear you say?" Karen's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. "I'll tell you what he heard." Sarah's voice shook with rage. "Yesterday, when we arrived early, Tommy was playing upstairs. He came down for a snack and heard Karen and Richard in the kitchen. He heard Karen say, 'After she drinks the wine at dinner tomorrow, it'll look like her heart just gave out. No one will question it, not at her age.'" The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the table. My own daughter, my firstborn child, the one I'd carried for 9 months and loved for 35 years. "That's insane," Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Sarah, you're putting words in a kid's mouth." "I know what I heard," Tommy sobbed. "Aunt Karen said Grandma had to die so they could get the house and the money." I looked at the wine glass sitting innocent and dark on my white tablecloth. My special glass, the one Karen had handed me specifically. "It's not what you think, Mom." Karen finally found her voice. It sounded strange, mechanical. "This is all a misunderstanding. Tommy's 7. He probably heard us discussing your will and he got confused." "We need to call the police." David pulled out his phone. "Wait." The word came from somewhere deep inside me. "Everyone, wait." I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, but I stood. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, at the designer clothes she wore despite claiming to be broke, at the new diamond earrings, and at the expensive watch that hadn't been there last month. "How much?" I asked quietly.
"Mom, how much did you take from me, Karen?"
The silence stretched out like pulled taffy. It was supposed to be a loan, Richard muttered, not meeting my eyes. We were going to pay it back. Shut up, Karen hissed at him. A loan. I heard my voice from far away. How much? David was scrolling through his phone. I'm looking at her financial power of attorney access. Mom, she's had full access to your accounts for 2 years. She needed help after the stroke. Karen's voice rose, defensive now. She could barely remember to pay her electric bill. How much, Karen? My daughter's beautiful face twisted into something ugly. $370,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. 370,000. My entire life savings. Every penny I saved from working 2 jobs. Every sacrifice. Every skipped vacation. Every time I bought the store brand groceries and wore the same winter coat for 10 years. The house is worth another 400,000, Richard added, and I realized he'd been in on it from the start. That's why he moved back home. That's why they'd been so helpful, so attentive these past 2 years. They were waiting for me to die fast enough so they could split everything. But when I didn't die fast enough on my own, they decided to help the process along. You were really going to do it? I wasn't asking. I was understanding. You were really going to poison me. It's not like you have that many years left anyway, Karen exploded. The mask completely dropped. You're 60 years old with a heart condition. We needed that money now, not when we're too old to enjoy it. Do you know how much debt I'm in? Do you know what Richard owes in gambling debts? We're your children. That money should be ours. There it was, the truth, raw and hideous.
David doesn't need it, she continued, her voice venomous now. David has his perfect little life and his perfect little family and his perfect little job. But Richard and I are drowning, and you just sit on all that money like some kind of... I think that's enough. David's voice was ice. I'm calling the police now. No, wait. I held up my hand. My mind was working through something, a memory trying to surface. Before we do that, I need to know something. I turned to Richard. You said it was supposed to be a loan. When did the loan become murder? Richard opened his mouth, but Karen cut him off. It doesn't matter. What matters is, it matters to me. My voice cracked like thunder. 60 years of being quiet, being patient, being understanding, all of it shattered in that moment. You stole from me. You planned to kill me. And you did it in my own home, at my own birthday dinner, in front of my grandson. So you will tell me when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. Richard broke. 6 months ago, when we found out about the life insurance policy, everything stopped. What life insurance policy? I whispered. But if you think that was bad, wait until you hear what came next. David's face went white. Dad's old policy, the one from the factory. I hadn't thought about that policy in decades. My husband Tom worked at the steel mill before he died in that accident 28 years ago. There'd been a small payout then, which I'd used to keep us afloat. But there was another policy, a larger one, that I'd forgotten about entirely. It was supposed to mature when you turned 60, Richard said, his words tumbling out now. $500,000. Karen found the paperwork when she was going through your files for the power of attorney. I was helping you organize, Karen's voice pitched higher. I was trying to take care of you, and I found that dusty old folder, and I saw the policy, and You saw an opportunity, David finished coldly. I saw freedom, Karen screamed. Do you know what it's like to be drowning in debt? To have creditors calling every single day? To watch your friends take vacations and buy new cars while you can barely make rent? And the whole time, Mama's sitting on almost $1 million and acting like she's poor. I worked for that money, I said quietly. Every single penny. And you were going to leave it all to David anyway, Richard burst out. We've seen the will, Mom. Everything goes to him because he's the successful one, the responsible one. Karen and I get nothing but this house to split between us. That wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. My will did favor David. He'd been the one who finished college, who built a stable life, who didn't ask me for money every month. So you decided to kill me before my birthday, I said slowly, working through the timeline, before the insurance policy matured and I could access it. It was supposed to mature when you turned 60. Karen's voice had gone flat, detached, like she was discussing a grocery list. If you died after the policy matured and the money was in your account, there'd be more scrutiny, more questions about where the money went. But if you died right before, the insurance would pay out to your estate, and as your power of attorney, I could claim it was necessary for final expenses and estate management. She's been planning this for 6 months, David said, his voice shaking with rage. 6 months of pretending to care, pretending to help, while plotting to murder our mother. Sarah had covered Tommy's ears, but the boy was crying silently, his face buried in his mother's shirt. And you, Richard, I turned to my youngest son, you were fine with this? Fine with killing your own mother? I didn't want to, his voice broke. Karen said it was the only way. She said you'd never give us the money willingly. She said David had poisoned you against us. She said...
I said what needed to be said. Karen stood up, her chair scraping harsh against the floor. I'm not ashamed. You want to know the truth? Fine. Here's the truth. What came next felt like watching a stranger inhabit my daughter's body. You've always loved David more, she said, her voice cold and measured now. Always. He was the smart one, the good one. He got all the praise, all the pride, all the I'm so proud of you, son speeches. What did Richard and I get? Why can't you be more like your brother? David would never disappoint me like this. Maybe if you worked as hard as David. That's not true, I started. It's completely true. The coldness cracked, and underneath was decades of resentment. Do you know what it's like growing up in David's shadow? Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect family. And us? We were the failures, the disappointments, the ones who could never measure up, no matter how hard we tried. I loved you equally, I said, but my voice wavered. You loved who you wanted us to be, not who we were. And when we couldn't be that, you gave up on us. You wrote us off. You changed your will to favor David because we weren't worth investing in anymore. I changed the will because you kept asking me for money. Every month, Karen, every single month, another emergency, another crisis, another loan that was never repaid. I gave you nearly $100,000 over the years, and it was never enough. Because you had more, she screamed. You always had more, and you hoarded it like some kind of dragon sitting on gold. That money could have changed our lives, but you kept it locked away, acting like you were poor, like you were struggling, when you were sitting on a fortune. I was saving it for my future, for medical care, for assisted living if I needed it, for emergencies. I worked 60-hour weeks for 30 years to save that money. I earned it. And we're your children. Karen's face was ugly with rage now. We're your flesh and blood. That money should have been ours. Instead, you're gonna die and leave it all to David, who doesn't even need it, while Richard and I lose everything. So you decided to kill me.
I let the words hang in the air. You decided your own mother should die so you could have money you didn't earn? I decided to take what should have been ours all along, Karen said flatly. David had his phone out. That's it. That's a full confession. I'm calling.
Wait, I said again, because something still didn't fit. Karen, you said you found the insurance policy 6 months ago, but Tommy said he heard you yesterday. Yesterday, you were still planning to go through with it. Why? Karen's face flickered with something. Was it guilt? Uncertainty? The answer to that question, said a new voice from the doorway, is because of me. We all turned. My brother-in-law, Tom's younger brother Michael, stood in the entrance to the dining room. I hadn't even heard him arrive. Michael? I barely recognized my own voice. What are you doing here? I invited him. David's voice was strange. I asked him to come because there's something else you need to know, Mom. Something about Dad's death. Something that changes everything about this entire situation. My legs gave out. I sat down hard in my chair. No, Karen whispered. David, don't. David said firmly. She's always deserved to know. Michael walked slowly into the room. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, more worn. Margaret, he said softly, I'm sorry I kept this secret for so long, but Tom made me promise, and I kept that promise until last month when David came asking questions about the insurance policy. What secret? My voice was barely a whisper. Michael took a deep breath. Tom didn't die in a factory accident, Margaret. He killed himself. And that leads to the moment that changed everything forever.
The words didn't make sense. They were sounds without meaning, syllables strung together wrong. No, I shook my head. No, Tom died when the machinery malfunctioned. The foreman said. The foreman lied, Michael said gently. We all lied. Tom, the union rep, the insurance investigator, me. We all lied to protect you and the kids. The room swayed. David was suddenly beside me, his hand on my shoulder, steadying me. I don't understand, I whispered. Michael pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. Tom was drowning in debt, gambling debt mostly. He'd gotten in deep with some very bad people. They were threatening him, threatening you, threatening the kids. He saw only one way out. The life insurance, David said quietly. Dad knew about both policies, the small immediate one and the larger one that would mature on your 60th birthday. He structured it that way deliberately. Michael nodded. Tom timed it so his death would look like an accident. Suicide wouldn't have paid out, but an industrial accident would. He made it look like the safety mechanisms failed, like the machinery caught him. But he stepped into that press deliberately, Margaret. He died so you and the kids would be taken care of. I couldn't breathe. The room was closing in. The immediate payout kept you afloat, Michael continued, and Tom set up the second policy to mature when you turned 60, when the kids would be grown, when you'd be facing retirement. He wanted to make sure you'd be okay, that you'd never have to worry about money in your old age. He killed himself for money? The words tasted like ashes. He killed himself because he loved you, Margaret. Those men were going to hurt you, Margaret, hurt the kids. Tom heard them say it. He heard them planning it. And he knew that if he died in a factory accident, the insurance would pay enough to get you free of this town, free of the debt, free of the danger. Tears streamed down my face. 28 years,
28 years of believing my husband died in a tragic accident, of mourning the randomness of it, the unfairness, and all along, he'd chosen to die, chosen to leave us. Did he leave a note? I asked through my tears.
Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope yellowed with age. He left this with me, made me promise not to give it to you unless you absolutely needed to know. I think now qualifies. My hands shook as I took the envelope. My name was written on the front in Tom's handwriting, that familiar scrawl I'd seen on grocery lists and birthday cards and love notes hidden in my lunch. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then Michael has told you the truth. I'm sorry for lying to you, even in death, but I couldn't let you know I was choosing to leave. You would have tried to stop me. You would have said we'd find another way. But there was no other way, my love. The debt was too deep. The men I owed were too dangerous. They showed me pictures of you at the grocery store. They showed me pictures of Karen getting on the school bus. They told me exactly what they'd do to you, to our babies, if I didn't pay. I couldn't pay. I'd lost everything. The only thing I had left of any value was my life insurance. So I'm giving you that. I'm giving you safety. I'm giving you a future. I'm giving you everything I have left to give. Take the insurance money and leave this town. Start over somewhere safe. Raise our children to be good people. Live the life I wish I could have given you. The second policy will mature on your 60th birthday. I set it up that way deliberately. Use that money for yourself, Margaret, not for the kids. They'll be grown by then. Use it to travel, to relax, to enjoy the years you have left. You've worked so hard for so long. You deserve peace. I love you more than my own life, literally. Tell the kids I'm sorry. Tell them I love them. Tell them I'm sorry I was weak. Forever yours, Tom. The paper slipped from my fingers. David caught it before it fell. I looked up at Karen, at Richard, at my children, Tom's children, who had just tried to steal the only thing their father had left me.
He died for us, I said softly. Your father died so we could be safe, so we could have a future. Karen's face crumpled. For the first time that night, she looked like my daughter again, not the cold stranger who tried to poison me. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, Mom, I didn't know. I thought it was just insurance from his factory job. I didn't know. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. He died so you could be safe, I repeated, looking at each of my children. And you repaid that sacrifice by trying to kill me for the money he died to give us? Mom, I'm so sorry. Karen's words came between broken sobs. I'm so sorry. I was angry and desperate, and I convinced myself you owed us, that it was fair, that it didn't matter. But it does matter. God, it matters so much. Sorry doesn't bring back trust, David said coldly. Sorry doesn't erase attempted murder. I know. Karen looked up at me, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve forgiveness. I need you to know that I didn't know about Dad. I didn't know what he sacrificed. If I'd known, would it have changed anything? I asked. Really? The silence was her answer. I looked at the wine glass still sitting on the table. What was in it? Oleander extract, mimics heart failure. We got it from... He trailed off. It doesn't matter where you got it. What matters is what happens now. Everyone looked at me.
The power was suddenly terrifyingly mine. I could call the police. I could press charges. I could watch my own children go to prison for attempted murder. Or I could do something else. So what does all this really mean? I stood up slowly, my body feeling every one of its 60 years. David, put your phone away, I said quietly. Mom, they tried to kill you. I know what they did. I looked at Karen, then Richard. Believe me, I know exactly what they did. The weight of Tom's letter sat heavy in my pocket where I'd tucked it. 28 years of believing one story, only to learn the truth had been something else entirely. My husband had loved me enough to die. My children had hated me enough, or loved money enough, to want me dead. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my soul. Karen, you're going to transfer every penny you took from my account back. Every single penny. You're going to sign papers removing yourself from any power of attorney, any access to my finances, any claim on my estate. I don't have that money anymore, Karen whispered. It's gone. Debts, expenses. Then you'll sell whatever you need to sell. You'll take out loans. You'll work 3 jobs if you have to, just like I did. I let that sink in. You'll pay it back over time if necessary, but you'll pay it back. And until every cent is returned, you won't see me. You won't call me. You won't ask me for anything. Karen nodded, tears streaming. Richard, I turned to my youngest son. You're moving out tomorrow. You're going to find a job, any job, and you're going to support yourself. No more living off your mother, no more handouts. You're 40 years old. It's time to grow up. Mom, I don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. The words hurt to say, but they were true. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. I looked at David, at Sarah, at little Tommy who had saved my life. The 3 of you are leaving with me tonight. We're going to a hotel, and tomorrow we're meeting with my lawyer to redo my will completely. David, I'm setting up a trust for Tommy's education. The rest will be divided between charity and my own care. When I die, there will be nothing left to fight over. Mom, you don't have to... Yes, I do. I cut him off. Your father died believing that money would give us all safety and peace. Instead, it brought nothing but poison, literally. I won't let his sacrifice be for nothing, but I also won't let it destroy what's left of this family. I walked to the dining table and picked up the wine glass. Everyone tensed. This glass represents everything that went wrong tonight, I said. Greed, betrayal, secrets, the moment when a family decided money was worth more than love. I walked to the kitchen sink and poured the poison down the drain, watching the dark wine swirl and disappear. I'm washing it away, I said, all of it, but that doesn't mean I'm forgetting it. When I turned back, Michael was standing. Margaret, I'm sorry I kept the truth about Tom from you for so long, he said. He made me promise, but maybe if I'd told you years ago, things would have been different. Or maybe they'd have been worse, I said. We can't know. What I do know is that Tom loved me enough to die for me, and I loved him enough to live for him. I raised his children the best I could. I worked hard. I saved money. I tried to be a good mother. I looked at Karen and Richard. But somewhere along the way, I failed you both. Maybe I did favor David. Maybe I did compare you too much. Maybe I held money too tight because I was scared of ending up like Tom, desperate and drowning and seeing no way out. That's not an excuse for what we did, Karen said softly.
No, it's not. I agreed. But it's an explanation for how we got here. And if I've learned anything tonight, it's that explanations matter. Truth matters, even when it hurts. Tommy pulled away from Sarah and walked over to me. His small hand slipped into mine. "Are you okay, Grandma?" he asked. I knelt down to his level, feeling my knees crack, and looked into his innocent, worried face. "I'm okay, sweetheart," I said. "Thank you for saving me. You were so brave." "I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't want to tell because I thought maybe I heard wrong, but Dad always says to tell the truth even when it's scary." "Your dad is right." I pulled him into a hug, this beautiful boy who had more courage in his small body than most adults ever find. "You did exactly the right thing."
Over his shoulder, I saw Karen watching us, her face a mask of grief and regret. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old love, the fierce maternal protectiveness I'd felt when she was Tommy's age. But then I remembered the wine glass, the poison, the cold calculation in her voice when she'd said, "It's not like you have that many years left anyway." Some things, once broken, can't be fully repaired. "We should go," David said gently. "It's late, and Mom needs rest." I nodded. Sarah gathered their things while David collected Tommy's drawings and toys scattered around the living room. "Mom?" Richard's voice was small, childlike. "Are you really never going to talk to us again?" I looked at him, this son I'd carried and raised and loved and failed. "I didn't say never," I replied carefully. I said, "Not until the money is repaid. And even then, Richard, you need to understand that trust isn't a light switch. You can't just flip it back on. It's something that has to be rebuilt brick by brick, and it takes time, a lot of time." "But it's possible?" His eyes held desperate hope. "I don't know," I admitted. "Right now, I honestly don't know. What I do know is that I need space. I need time to process that my own children tried to kill me. That's not something you get over quickly." Karen stood up, unsteady on her feet. "I'll have the money back to you within 5 years. I promise. I'll sell my car, my furniture, everything. I'll work every hour I can. I'll make this right." 5 years is a long time. "I know," she wiped her eyes, "but I'll do it. And maybe by then you'll be able to look at me again without seeing
the daughter who tried to murder me?" I finished. "Maybe. I hope so, for both our sakes." Michael walked me to the door where David was waiting. "Margaret, take care of yourself," Michael said. "Tom would be proud of how you handled this. He always said you were the strongest person he knew." "Strong," I laughed bitterly. "I don't feel strong. I feel tired and heartbroken and old." "You're all those things," Michael agreed. "But you're also alive, and you're making the hard choices to protect yourself. That's strength." As we walked out to David's rental car, I looked back at my house. The lights were still on. Through the dining room window, I could see Karen and Richard sitting at the table where we'd almost celebrated my birthday, where I'd almost drunk poison poured by my own daughter's hands. The house looked the same as it always had. The same blue shutters Tom had painted 15 years before he died. The same garden I'd tended for decades. The same front porch where I'd sat and watched my children play. But everything was different now. "Mom," David opened the car door for me. "You ready?" "No," I said honestly, "but let's go anyway." Before we end, there's one last thing you need to know. 3 months have passed since that birthday dinner. Karen transferred $127,000 back to my account. Everything she could scrape together from selling her car, her jewelry, and taking out loans. She sends me a payment receipt every month, along with a short letter I don't read. Not yet. David says she got a job at a call center and is working night shifts at a grocery store. She's paying back her debt, literally and figuratively. Richard moved to his friend's couch, then to a studio apartment he can barely afford. Last I heard, he was working construction and attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings. I don't know if it'll stick, but it's a start. David wanted me to move closer to him and his family, but I stayed in my house. This is the house Tom died for, the house he wanted his children to inherit. I won't let poison and betrayal drive me from the home we built together. But I did make changes. I hired a financial advisor, someone with no family connection, to manage my money. I updated my will just as I'd promised. I joined a grief support group where I finally processed Tom's real death, not the accident I'd believed in for 28 years. And I got to know my grandson better. Tommy and I video chat every week now. He tells me about school, about his friends, about the books he's reading. He doesn't talk about that night, and I don't bring it up. Some things are too heavy for 7-year-old shoulders to carry. But there's something else. Something I discovered 2 weeks ago that I haven't told anyone yet. I was going through more of Tom's old papers, really going through them this time, not just the surface look I'd done before. And I found another letter. This one wasn't with the insurance documents. It was hidden in an old book of poetry Tom had loved, tucked inside a poem about sacrifice and love. The letter was addressed to Karen, David, and Richard, to be opened only if something ever threatened to tear them apart. Tom had known. Somehow, my husband had known that money might poison our family. His letter to them was short. My beloved children, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. Maybe you're fighting over inheritance. Maybe you've let money come between you and your mother or between each other. I want you to know that I died to give you all safety and opportunity, not to give you money. The insurance was meant to free your mother from danger and to give her security in her old age. It was never meant to be your inheritance. Your real inheritance is the values I tried to teach you: loyalty, honesty, hard work, love. Money is just paper. Family is forever. If you've let paper come between you and forever, then I died for nothing. Don't let me have died for nothing. If your mother is reading this because she found it first, I want her to know. Use the money however you need to, my love. If that means cutting off the kids to teach them a lesson, do it. If it means forgiving them and helping them one more time, do that. Trust your judgment. I always did. And remember, I chose to die so you could live. Don't waste that gift.
Love, always. Dad/Tom. I sat in Tom's old reading chair when I found that letter.
the afternoon sun streaming through the window, and I cried harder than I had in years. Not just for the husband I'd lost, but for the man who'd known his family so well that even in death, he tried to protect us from ourselves. The question now is what to do with this letter. Part of me wants to send it to Karen and Richard, to let them see their father's words, his wisdom, his warning that came true. Maybe it would help them understand the weight of what they did. Maybe it would speed their healing, their growth. But another part of me thinks some lessons have to be learned through consequences, not words. That they need to find their way back on their own, not because their dead father told them to. I don't know which choice Tom would want me to make. What I do know is this. I'm 60 years old. I survived my husband's suicide, that I thought was an accident. I survived my children's attempt to poison me. I survived learning that everyone I loved most had lied to me about something. And I'm still here, still breathing, still working in my garden, still having video chats with my grandson, still eating chocolate cake on quiet Tuesday afternoons, because life is short and cake is good, and I don't have to wait for birthdays anymore.
Last week, I did something Tom would have loved. I took $5,000 from the insurance money and donated it to a program that helps families struggling with gambling addiction and debt. I did it in Tom's name, not to honor his gambling problem, but to honor the love that made him desperate enough to see death as the only solution. Maybe that money will save a family. Maybe some father won't feel so desperate that he steps into a factory press. Maybe some mother won't have to raise 3 children alone while working 2 jobs. Maybe something good can grow from all this poison and pain. Karen sent me a birthday card last month. Not for my birthday, that's still months away, and I don't think I'll ever celebrate another birthday quite the same way. But she sent it early with a note. I know I can't be there this year, or maybe next year, maybe not for many years, but I wanted you to know I'm thinking of you, and I'm sorry. Every single day, I'm sorry. I kept the card. I didn't respond, but I kept it. Some nights when I can't sleep, I take out Tom's letters and read them again. The one to me, explaining his sacrifice. The one to the children, warning them about what I was learning to be true. And I think about truth. How sometimes the truth is hidden to protect us. How sometimes the truth is revealed to save us. How sometimes the truth destroys everything we thought we knew, and we have to build a new understanding from the wreckage. My son whispered, "Don't drink that," and saved my life. But what saved my soul was learning that my husband had loved me more than I'd ever imagined, that his death wasn't random tragedy, but deliberate sacrifice, that even knowing the darkness of debt and desperation, he chose to protect his family with his last breath. Karen and Richard made terrible choices, unforgivable choices maybe, but they made them while not knowing the full story of their father's love and sacrifice. They saw money as just money, not as their father's life transformed into dollars and cents. Does that excuse what they did? No. Does it explain it? Maybe a little. Does it mean I'll forgive them? I honestly don't know yet. What I do know is that I'm still alive to make that choice. And that's because a 7-year-old boy was braver than most adults ever have to be. Tommy asked me yesterday during our video chat if I was going to be okay. Yes, sweetheart, I told him. Grandma is going to be okay. Even though your birthday was scary? Even though my birthday was scary. Will we have cake next year?
His voice was so hopeful, so innocent. Yes, I promised. Next year, we'll have cake. Just you, me, your mom and dad. A small party. A safe party. What kind of cake? Any kind you want, Tommy. Chocolate? Chocolate it is. He smiled then, and in that smile I saw the future. Not the poisoned past, not the broken trust, not the family torn apart by greed and secrets, but a small boy who saved his grandmother and still believes in birthday cake. That's worth living for. Tom died believing his sacrifice would give us safety and peace. It took 60 years and a poisoned wine glass to understand what he really gave us. A choice. The choice to let money define us or to let love define us. The choice to let betrayal destroy us or to let survival strengthen us. Karen and Richard chose money. For now, at least. I'm choosing life. Every morning, I wake up in the house Tom died for. I make my coffee in the kitchen where my daughter planned my murder. I tend the garden where I used to imagine my children playing with their own children someday.
And I live. Not because everything is okay, not because I've forgiven and forgotten, not because the happy ending came tied with a bow, but because, in the end, the truth may hurt, but it always sets us free. And I am finally, painfully, beautifully free. Free from the lie about how Tom died, free from the daughter who saw me as a bank account, free from the son who was too weak to say no to murder, free from the illusion that blood always means loyalty. I'm free to choose who gets my time, my love, my presence. And right now, I'm choosing me. Maybe someday I'll choose to let Karen and Richard back in. Maybe when the money is repaid and the years have passed and they've proven through actions, not words, that they understand the magnitude of what they did. Or maybe I won't. Either way, it's my choice now, and that's the greatest gift Tom ever gave me. Not the insurance money, but the chance to live long enough to decide for myself who deserves a place in my life. My son whispered, "Don't drink that." And chaos began. But from that chaos came clarity. Painful, terrible, necessary clarity. And I'm still here to see it. Still alive, still choosing, still free. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who betray us deepest. Sometimes the love we thought we understood was bigger and more sacrificial than we ever imagined. Sometimes it takes poison to reveal the truth. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's simply choosing to live well despite everything. What would you do if your own family betrayed you? How would you rebuild trust once it's shattered? When is forgiveness earned, and when is it just enabling? These are the questions I ask myself every day. And every day I wake up and choose life. That's my answer.